The crystalline spires of the Galactic Concordat central chamber gleamed under artificial starlight as James Sullivan fought to maintain his composure. The veteran Earth diplomat's carefully crafted mask of calm shattered as the AI translator's words echoed through the vast chamber. By ancient Zenithian law, custody of Ambassador Naira is hereby transferred to James Sullivan of Earth. The chamber erupted into chaos. Zenithian delegates, their bioluminescent skin flashing angry patterns of red and orange, rose from their seats in protest. The human delegation sat stunned, while representatives from a dozen other species began shouting in their native tongues. High Commander Raxus of the Zenithian Empire slammed his crystalline staff against the floor, sending reverberations through the chamber. This is an outrage. A human cannot be granted custody of a Zenithian Prime Ambassador. The treaty is void. James's mind raced as he observed Naira, the Zenithian ambassador in question. Her tall, elegant form remained perfectly still, but her skin rippled with patterns of deep blue, a sign of intense emotional turmoil in her species. Her silver eyes met his across the chamber, and he felt an unexpected jolt of connection. The law is absolute, declared the Concordat's chief arbitrator, a being of pure energy contained within an ancient mechanical shell. The inheritance clause of the Zenithian diplomatic code clearly states that any being who saves the life of a prime ambassador gains custodial rights. Ambassador Sullivan's actions during the Proxima incident qualify under these terms. James remembered that day 3 months ago, the terrorist attack on the Peace Summit, his split-second decision to push Naira out of the path of an energy blast. He'd acted on instinct, never imagining it would lead to this. Director Patricia Blackwood, Earth's senior representative, stepped forward. Surely we can reach a reasonable compromise. This ancient law couldn't have anticipated cross-species inheritance. Laws are laws, rumbled High Commander Raxus, his massive frame trembling with barely contained fury. If Earth insists on enforcing this travesty, we will consider it an act of war. The threat hung heavy in the air. Earth's military forces, while formidable, couldn't hope to match the technological superiority of the Zenithian Empire. A war would devastate humanity. James rose from his seat, his diplomatic training taking over. I request a brief recess to consult with both parties. There must be a solution that preserves both the law and peace. As the chamber adjourned, James found himself ushered into a private conference room with Director Blackwood and Earth's military liaison, General Harrison. The general's weathered face was grim as he pulled up holographic displays showing Zenithian fleet movements. They're already mobilizing, Harrison reported. 3 battle groups moving toward Earth's outer colonies. We have less than 48 hours before they're in strike range. This is insane, Blackwood muttered. James, you'll have to formally renounce any claim to Ambassador Naira. We can't risk war over an archaic legal technicality. Before James could respond, the door chimed and Naira herself entered, her guard escort remaining outside. Her presence filled the room with an almost electric tension. Up close, James could see the intricate patterns flowing beneath her translucent skin, like living artwork. Ambassador Sullivan, she spoke, her voice carrying musical undertones that the translator couldn't quite capture. We must speak privately. Blackwood started to object, but James held up his hand. 5 minutes, Director. Please. Once alone, Naira moved closer, her silver eyes studying him intently. You don't understand what you've inherited, James Sullivan. This isn't just about diplomatic custody. The bond created by saving my life, it has implications beyond political boundaries. What do you mean? James asked, noticing how the patterns on her skin shifted to deeper, more complex formations. My species has abilities your people don't yet understand. The life debt between us has created a connection. Haven't you felt it? The awareness? The dreams? James's breath caught. The strange dreams he'd been having since the Proxima incident, flashes of alien emotions, glimpses of stars he'd never seen, suddenly made sense. If you renounce the inheritance, Naira continued, the connection will be severed. But there are those in my government who fear what we might learn from each other through this bond. They would rather start a war than risk the changes it might bring to our society. A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Their time was up, but James's mind was racing with new possibilities. This wasn't just about politics anymore, it was about understanding between species on a level never before achieved. As they left the conference room, James caught Naira's eye one last time. In that moment, he felt it clearly, the telepathic thread binding them together, humming with potential. Whatever came next would change both their civilizations forever. The question was, would that change come through war or understanding? In the hours following the diplomatic crisis, the Concordat station became a hive of frenzied activity. James paced in his temporary quarters, watching distant starships maneuver through the observation window. The connection with Naira hummed in his mind, growing stronger with each passing hour. Through their developing bond, he sensed her distress 2 decks above, where she was confined under heavy guard. The Zenithian military didn't trust their prized diplomat in human custody, regardless of ancient laws. Fragments of her thoughts filtered through to him, concern for her people, fascination with their connection, and something else, a growing sense of urgency about information she couldn't share openly. A soft chime announced Director Blackwood's arrival. The Zenithian High Council has issued an ultimatum, she said without preamble. Renounce the inheritance within 12 hours, or they'll consider it an act of aggression. They're hiding something, James replied, his diplomatic instincts heightened by Naira's leaked emotions. This reaction is too extreme for a simple custody dispute. The director's expression hardened. Whatever they're hiding, we can't risk war. Earth's colonies are evacuating, but we can't move everyone in time. If their fleet attacks. She was interrupted by an urgent message on her comm device. James felt a spike of alarm through his bond with Naira, followed by a mental warning, don't trust everyone in your government. Emergency meeting in the main chamber, Blackwood announced. The Zenithians have new demands. As they hurried through the station's corridors, James noticed increased security, both human and alien. The tension was palpable, with armed guards at every intersection. Through his link with Naira, he sensed her being escorted to the chamber as well. High Commander Raxus dominated the chamber upon their arrival, his massive frame silhouetted against the starfield visible through the transparent dome. We have discovered disturbing information, he announced, his translator struggling to convey his tone. Human intelligence services have been probing our diplomatic corps for weaknesses. This inheritance claim is part of a larger espionage operation. James felt Naira's mental recoil at the lie, but before he could protest, General Harrison stepped forward. These accusations are baseless. If anyone's been conducting espionage, it's the Zenithian embassy on Earth. We have proof of unauthorized communications. Enough. The chief arbitrator's voice cut through the arguing. These accusations require investigation. Until then, Ambassador Sullivan retains custody rights under law. Raxus's skin flared crimson. Then you leave us no choice. The Zenithian Empire formally withdraws from the Galactic Concordat. We will protect our interests as we see fit. The announcement sent shockwaves through the chamber. Withdrawal from the Concordat meant the Zenithians would no longer be bound by interstellar law, or the consequences of breaking it. Through their bond, James suddenly felt Naira's presence grow stronger. Her thoughts became clearer, meet me in the botanical gardens. There's something you must know. Making his excuse to Blackwood, James slipped away from the ensuing chaos. The botanical gardens were neutral ground, designed to accommodate various alien species. As he entered the humid chamber, bioluminescent plants cast shifting shadows across the paths. Naira waited beside a towering crystal formation, her skin pulsing with urgent patterns. The inheritance law, she said without preamble, it's not what everyone thinks. It was created centuries ago when my people first discovered their capacity for deep mental bonds with other species. Why would they create a law forcing such bonds? James asked, moving closer. Because they feared what we might become without them. James, my species is evolving. The younger generations are losing their emotional capacity, becoming cold, logical, dangerous. The old laws were meant to force us to maintain connections with other races, to keep our empathy alive. The revelation staggered him. And now those in power want to stop it. Why? Control. Naira's skin darkened. A population without emotion is easier to command. But there's more. The bond between us, it's stronger than any recorded in our history. Some in the High Council fear what that means. A distant explosion rocked the station before James could respond. Emergency alarms blared as artificial gravity fluctuated. Through their bond, both James and Naira felt a surge of shared danger awareness. We have to go, Naira said urgently. There are those who would rather see us dead than risk the changes our bond might bring. As they raced from the gardens, James felt their mental connection surge stronger, driven by adrenaline and shared purpose. Whatever conspiracy they had stumbled upon, it was clear that the fate of both their species hung in the balance. And somewhere in the darkness of space, fleets of warships were moving into position, their commanders awaiting orders that would either preserve peace or plunge the galaxy into war. The bond between a human diplomat and an alien ambassador had become the focal point of a crisis that threatened to tear the galaxy apart, unless they could uncover the truth in time to stop it. Part 3, Hidden Agendas. The station shuddered with another explosion as James and Naira raced through its winding corridors. Emergency lighting bathed everything in a pulsing red glow, and through their strengthening bond, they shared an acute awareness of pursuit, both human and Zenithian forces converging on their location. This way, Naira pulled James into a maintenance shaft, her skin dimming to match the darkness. The old service tunnels aren't on modern security systems. Through their connection, James felt her sharing knowledge of the station's layout, information embedded in her diplomatic briefings. As they navigated the narrow passages, fragments of her memories flowed into his mind, secret meetings, whispered conspiracies, growing concern among Zenithian moderates about their species' evolution. Security forces are reporting simultaneous attacks across multiple levels, James said, accessing a data terminal. But something's wrong, the patterns are too precise, too coordinated. Naira's skin flickered with confirmation. Because both sides are working together. Watch. They accessed surveillance feeds showing human and Zenithian security teams. While they appeared to be fighting, their movements were choreographed, their weapons set to minimal power. A show of conflict, nothing more. There's a faction in both governments, Naira explained, her thoughts merging more smoothly with his now. They believe that controlled conflict between our species is necessary, that peace would make us weak. They've been orchestrating tensions for years. A memory surfaced in James's mind, not his own, but Naira's. A secret meeting she'd witnessed, High Commander Raxus conferring with human officials, including some James recognized from Earth's military command. They were planning something called Project Firewall. The Proxima incident, James realized. The attack that led to our bond, it wasn't random. No, Naira's skin pulsed with anger. They needed a catalyst for war, but they didn't anticipate the strength of our connection. Now they're desperate to sever it before. The wall beside them exploded inward. Through swirling debris stepped a figure James recognized, Colonel Richards from Earth Intelligence, flanked by Zenithian combat specialists. I'm sorry, Ambassador Sullivan, Richards said, raising an energy weapon. But this bond of yours threatens everything we've worked for. Humanity needs this war, it's the only way to force technological advancement and unite Earth's nations. By sacrificing millions of lives. James demanded, feeling Naira's consciousness align more closely with his own. Acceptable losses for species-wide advancement, one of the Zenithian soldiers replied. Our own evolution must be controlled, directed. The old empathic abilities make us vulnerable. But James and Naira were no longer listening. Through their bond, they had discovered something extraordinary. Their merged consciousness could perceive energy patterns, the very fabric of spacetime around them. Acting as one, they reached out with their combined will. The energy weapons pointed at them sparked and died. The artificial gravity in the corridor reversed, sending their attackers tumbling upward. James felt the strain in his mind, like stretching an unused muscle, but Naira's strength flowed into him. Impossible, Richards gasped, clinging to a ceiling conduit. The reports said the bond would take weeks to reach this level. Your reports were wrong, Naira said, her voice harmonizing with James's thoughts. You don't understand what you're trying to destroy. Taking advantage of their attackers' confusion, they fled deeper into the station's infrastructure. Through their enhanced perception, they could sense the web of conspiracies unraveling around them, coded transmissions between corrupt officials, secret meetings in shadowed chambers, orders being given that would doom millions. We have to reach the central communications array, Naira sent through their bond. If we can broadcast the truth to both fleets. They'll never let us get close, James replied mentally, sharing images of the security cordons being established. They don't understand what we've become, Naira's thoughts carried a note of wonder. This bond, it's not just communication. It's evolution. The next step for both our species. As if to prove her point, their merged consciousness expanded further, touching the minds of others nearby. They could sense the confusion of security teams, the growing doubt among soldiers ordered to hunt them, the fear of conspirators as their plans began to crumble. But they also felt something else, a vast, ancient awareness stirring in the space between stars. Something that had been waiting for precisely this moment, when two species would bridge the gap between them and achieve something new. As they moved through the station's depths, pursued by those who feared change, James and Naira realized their bond had become more than just a diplomatic crisis. It was a gateway to understanding an even greater truth about the galaxy and their place in it. The question was, could they survive long enough to share that truth with others? The central communications array loomed before them, a towering spire of crystalline technology stretching toward the station's outer hull. James and Naira moved through its shadowed base, their merged consciousness extending outward like invisible tendrils, sensing the movements of those hunting them. Through their enhanced perception, they could feel the approaching fleets, hundreds of ships carrying thousands of mines, all moving inexorably toward conflict. But beneath those surface thoughts, they sensed something else, an ancient pattern pulsing through the fabric of space itself. You feel it too, Naira's thoughts merged with his. The signal hidden in subspace. Before James could respond, a new presence touched their merged consciousness, vast, alien, and impossibly old. Images flooded their shared mind, civilizations rising and falling across millions of years, species after species approaching the brink of transcendence, only to destroy themselves in final, catastrophic wars. Initialize final containment protocols, Colonel Richards' voice echoed through the station's communication system. The bond must be severed before full convergence occurs. Security teams converged on their location, but James and Naira were barely aware of them now. Their combined consciousness had expanded beyond physical concerns, touching the edges of understanding that had eluded both their species for millennia. The inheritance law, James sent through their bond, the revelation crystallizing in their shared mind. Your ancestors didn't create it. No, Naira's thoughts resonated with wonder. It was planted in our earliest legal codes by them. The architects. Through their expanded awareness, they could see the truth. An ancient species had seeded younger civilizations with the potential for cross-species bonds, waiting for the moment when two races would finally achieve true synthesis. Each failed attempt had led to war and extinction, the pattern repeating across eons. A blast door sealed behind them as they reached the array's control center. Through the transparent hull above, they could see the first shots being exchanged between advanced fleet elements, the beginning of what would become another civilization-ending war. The station's quantum core is overloading, James observed through their shared senses. They're going to destroy everything to stop us. They don't understand. Naira's thoughts carried an almost musical quality now. This was never about our two species alone. The bond between us, it's a key. Together, they approached the array's central interface. Their merged consciousness easily bypassed its security, reaching deeper into the station's systems. But instead of broadcasting a warning about the conspiracy, they found themselves drawn to ancient subroutines hidden in the station's quantum core. The vast alien presence touched their minds again, this time with approval. They were the first to reach this point, the first bonded pair to achieve sufficient synthesis without losing their individual selves. All fleet elements, you are cleared to engage, High Commander Raxus's voice boomed through the station. The human infection must be purged. But James and Naira barely heard him. Working as one, guided by knowledge that had waited millions of years to be rediscovered, they began activating protocols that had been hidden in the station's systems since its construction. The quantum core's energy shifted, creating patterns in subspace that they somehow recognized, a signal that had been waiting to be completed since before either of their species achieved space flight. Around them, the station's structure began to transform. Crystalline surfaces shifted and flowed like liquid, revealing glyphs and patterns that had been hidden beneath mundane technology. The ancient architects had built more than just a diplomatic station, they had created a beacon. Through their bond, James and Naira realized the truth about their role in the galaxy's history. They weren't just trying to prevent a war between their species. They were proving that true synthesis between different forms of life was possible, the key to unlocking the next stage of cosmic evolution. As the station continued its metamorphosis around them, they prepared to broadcast a message that would change both their civilizations forever. But first, they would have to survive the next few minutes, as both human and Zenithian forces converged on their location, determined to prevent a change they couldn't understand. The future of both their species hung in the balance, and time was running out. The transformed station pulsed with ancient energy as James and Naira stood at its heart, their merged consciousness extending through systems that had waited millions of years to be awakened. Above them, through the crystalline dome, the first salvos of what would become an interstellar war illuminated the void. Final containment teams in position, Colonel Richard's voice crackled through failing communication systems. Preparing to breach. But James and Naira were no longer focused on the immediate threat. Through their bond, they had accessed the station's true purpose, a repository of knowledge left by the architects. The ancient species hadn't just seeded the potential for cross-species bonds, they had created a pathway to something greater. We understand now, they spoke in unison, their voices carrying through the station's transformed communication array. The wars, the conflicts, they were tests. Each civilization given the chance to overcome their divisions. Their merged consciousness reached out to the approaching fleets, touching the minds of every crew member, sharing the truth they had discovered. The station's energy patterns amplified their connection, allowing them to broadcast not just information, but experience, the direct sensation of their bond. High Commander Raxus, preparing to give the final attack order, staggered as the awareness hit him. Through James and Naira's connection, he felt the emotional depth his species was losing, understood the price of enforced evolution. Director Blackwood, on her command ship, experienced the cosmic awareness that humanity had been unknowingly reaching toward. Stand down all weapons, Raxus's order echoed across space, his voice shaking. I understand now. We all understand. The hidden quantum protocols reached completion. The station's transformation entered its final phase, creating a bridge between dimensions that had been waiting since the dawn of consciousness in the galaxy. Through this gateway, the presence of the architects became clear to all. They had not died out, as so many species before them had. They had transcended, becoming beings of pure consciousness. But they couldn't sustain their new existence alone. They needed others to join them, to add new perspectives and experiences to their collective awareness. This is what we were meant to find, Naira sent through their bond, her thoughts merging with James's understanding. Not just peace between our species, but a path to something greater. The conspiracy to force war between humans and Zenithians crumbled as the truth spread. Colonel Richards and his allies found themselves surrounded by their own troops, all of them now aware of the greater destiny they had nearly destroyed. Through the Awakened Station, James and Naira began receiving the full database of architect knowledge, the collected wisdom of a species that had solved the fundamental questions of existence. But more importantly, they gained understanding of how to guide others towards similar bonds, to help both humans and Zenithians grow beyond their current limitations. The choice must be yours, the ancient presence communicated through them. Each species must decide its own path. We offer guidance, not compulsion. As the crisis subsided, new possibilities unfolded. The station would become a center of learning, where humans and Zenithians could explore their potential for connection under James and Naira's guidance. Other species, sensing the change, began requesting permission to send their own representatives. The war that would have ended two civilizations instead became the catalyst for their transformation. The bond between a human diplomat and an alien ambassador had unlocked a door that could never be closed, a path to understanding that transcended the physical boundaries of space and time. As the first teams of volunteers arrived to begin studying the bond phenomenon, James and Naira stood together at the station's observation deck. Through their connection, they shared a moment of profound peace, knowing that their accidental inheritance had led to something far greater than either of them could have imagined. The stars seemed brighter now, filled with new possibility. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, other beings waited to make similar discoveries, to forge their own bonds, and to join in the greater symphony of universal consciousness that the architects had always known was possible. The end was really just the beginning.